most difficult thing that agents often get wrong because they try to ask a big, bold question and they try to ask them to get married when really what they're trying to do is ask a baby question that would find out if there's even potential for a date.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the community here with eXp Realty. We are so excited you guys have joined us today. And I have one of my very best friends in the company here with us today, presenting and talking to us about exactly how to communicate. And what's interesting is, so Renee's an 8-time icon. I'll let her tell a little bit more about herself, but she's won more awards than most people in the company. She runs a great team. She's got a huge group with the company. She's done all the stuff, right? Check. But even more than that, she leads with heart, care, compassion, empathy. She's like a great human being. Lexi and I both absolutely adore her and her whole family. We spent a lot of time together. But what's also interesting today, and I want everyone to get into this mindset of being open to new information, is Renee's going to be sharing strategies that she's done. I mean, by the way, guys, she's been like a keynote speaker. She's been on stage. She's been at Inman. She's like doing all of the stuff. And so this is a real thought leader inside the real estate space. And I'm very excited to learn today. I've got my notepad ready to go. I've got my pen. Like I'm ready to take notes and get in the groove. So would everyone do me a quick favor? Just take a deep breath in, really deep. Fill it up. Let that out. Sometimes if the brain doesn't have oxygen, it gets a little, so what we need to do is be able to prime it. Every once in a while, if you notice yourself starting to drift, you start checking your email or doing something stupid like responding to a client during a training, that's not a great idea. You need to have boundaries, and your brain needs boundaries in order to be able to learn. You're learning from one of the best in the business today, so be here while you're here, right? There's the past. The past is something that we regret. The future is something that we worry about. Let's leave all that out of this training today, and let's just be here right now with Renee. But more importantly, welcome to the stage, Renee Funk from Orlando, Florida. How are you doing today, Renee? It's good to see you.
Oh my goodness, Jeff Richmond and the community. I like the thought of like, take a deep breath. Jeff, it's as if you knew what one of my first talking points was going to be. You'll see in a moment that you just queued me up perfectly. It is such an honor to share time with each and every one of you. And you and Lexi, we go way back. We're getting older.
Dang, dude. It happens overnight, right?
Notice I didn't say old. We're getting old.
No, I know. Yeah, well, you keep aging. The hope is to keep going, and then AI outpaces all of us, live to 700 or whatever is going to happen. I'm going to look really bad at 700, though, I'm pretty sure. Because I've seen 90-year-olds.
You're aging like fine wine. And for anyone later who would like to know some inside scoop of Jeff Richmond, and don't worry, it's all good. I have some fun memories years and years ago of Jeff Richmond and my then 12-year-old playing instruments at Jeff Richmond and Lexi's home.
Yeah, we were dorking
out. He's almost 21 and he is the lead tuba player for Lamont School of Music. So that's what I mean, we're getting older.
That's awesome. Golly, that happened fast, didn't it? Oh my gosh. And a handsome gentleman he is too. So, all right. Well, listen, I'm going to get out of the way, but Renee, I know you came with some really awesome information today, and thank you again for being here. Love your servant's heart. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll start by saying, don't worry. I'm not going to slide you to death and make this just one way. Though I do have a request as we share about the next hour and 10, 15 minutes together. That request is you're going to be fully present. That request is you're going to engage, that you're going to make the choice to listen, but also raise your hand, drop in chat, be fully present, because this is what I meant, Jeff Richmond. Presence is a gift. It's as if you knew. I get the honor to train and coach agents from around the country, from all different brokerages, actually, as a trainer in real estate. And every training with myself, Renee Funk, starts with this same slide. And that is the reminder that we are all pulled in 9,000 different directions. Anyone feel it? Your phone is pinging right now, right? Your email box is blowing up. So is mine. Don't worry. A pro can take the moment to give yourself the gift of you chose to be here. I chose to be here. I'm committed to deliver as much value as possible in our brief time that we have together. And my ask is that you're fully present as well and give yourself and the room the gift of being fully present. And what you'll walk away with is some tips, some strategies. And my personal favorite is hopefully an open mind to consider additional perspectives as to the way we communicate with others. You see, I am a passionate person about communication skills. P.S. I'm also a person who cannot stand robotic scripting. So if you're here for robotic scripting, this isn't the time. There is a way that we can really lean into curiosity and script and communication in a new way. Speaking of overwhelm, I thought this was pretty interesting. LinkedIn did a study last year, and 64% of adults in the workforce in the US are feeling overwhelmed at how quickly work is changing. 49% are worried about being left behind. Jeff Richmond and I were in the waiting room for a few moments before we launched this time together. And Jeff said, "How are you?" And I said, "Well, time's interesting. We have to be agile, right?" I too am feeling change. I too am feeling that bit of overwhelm of just take a deep breath and realize change is inevitable. It is the person who thinks about slowing down the process to speed up the outcome who will truly continue to soar. And we're going to talk about some of those strategies on slowing down slightly to speed up the outcome. Last year, again, in 2025, there was a national research study done called the Conversational Edge Study. And one of the data points that was incredibly interesting is 71% of working Americans can think of a time if they would have been a better communicator, their life might be very different for the better. 71% of working Americans feel that way. 85% of working Americans in the same national study think that leaders, by the way, who's a leader on this call? Every single person on this call, raise your hand. I see you, Michelle. I see you, Joe. When I look to my left, by the way, I have a big old screen over here. So I know y'all are right here. I look over here because I see you guys over here, and I have your chat up here, so I'll try to keep my eye on chat. Raise your hand if you're a leader. Heck yes. Marcy, I see you. I love it. 85% of working Americans think that leaders should be held to a higher standard for communication and preparation. More of what we're going to unpack today, because the worst time to think about the thing we are going to say is in the moment you are saying it. A room full of pros like this community, the community, we don't practice on consumers. We don't practice on customers. We don't practice on clients. We find space to create a safe space like this call today and like the collaboration that you all do on the regular to be messy, to think differently, to challenge each other, to think about different perspectives in ways that we can communicate. So we're not practicing for the first time at a listing consultation. We're not practicing the first time we pick up the phone to talk to this next buyer you're going to talk to this week. Curious, has anyone heard the advice in the real estate industry? Just go ahead and rip off and duplicate. Do a little R&D, drop it into chat or give me a hand raise. Have you heard the advice that it's okay to just R&D? Just rip off and duplicate what that other agent in another market is doing. Have you heard that? Emily says yes. Jeff says, of course. By the way, Jeff Richmond, you have to forever be called Jeff Richmond when I'm speaking because, you know, I'm married to a Jeff as well. And we have a lot of Jeffs in our world. So I am in a habit of calling Jeffs by their first and last name. It's just how I roll.
I love it. Keep at it.
Tyler says, I hear that at least bi-weekly from people all around. I'm inserting opinion here. So what? R&D is the worst advice ever given to a sales pro. The worst advice. When sales professionals look at what others are doing and rip off and duplicate it, there's an incredible amount of untapped opportunity and miss of your own authenticity. And if anybody's noticed, especially in the real estate industry in 2026, there's a sea of sameness. Everybody's starting to sound alike, write very similar. Everyone's a like Nobel Peace Prize writer now, right? Because they're just using AI like a vending machine, going into ChatGPT and saying, make it sound better and expecting miracles to come out. That's treating AI like a vending machine and is another part of rip off and duplicate to create this sea of sameness. You see it in talking head videos, you see it on social media, you see it everywhere. A whole lot of stereotypical salespeople sounding just like one another. So how does an actual pro break through the sea of sameness? Well, one of those ways is that curiosity is a superpower. A moment ago, I mentioned that the worst time to think about the thing you are going to say is in the moment you are saying it. You see, that's one of the 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. As an exactly what to say certified guide, that means I'm licensed to train this amazing, powerful book right here, which is called Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. Stay tuned to the very end because I'm going to be giving away some books to a few of you who send me a DM on Instagram. Well, another of the cornerstones of conversational excellence is curiosity is the fuel for great conversations. I like to say curiosity is a superpower. You see, as salespeople, it is one of our jobs to earn the right to make a recommendation. And the only way you can earn the right to make a recommendation is by that very superpower, leaning into your curiosity. Consumer hat lessons. When was the last time you received a cold call or spam mass text? Let's see it in here. Anybody get a cold call over the last couple days, or maybe one of those ridiculous text messages like, this is the revolutionary healthcare for realtors? You getting those texts? How often are you being mass marketed to, whether through cold calls or mass emails or mass texts? How often are you feeling that? I don't know about you, Jeff Richmond, but I'm getting multiple spam calls a day, multiple cold calls a day,
All the
multiple
time.
texts, right? Well, see, could it be possible we think of all of those cold mass texts that say nothing to make us feel seen, heard, and understood? Could it be possible that that is a gift of a lesson for you as a sales provider? You see, when we take a moment, again, to be fully present as the consumer, whether you go get your car washed, you go to the grocery store, whether you get your hair done, whether you go to the nail salon, whether you go anywhere you go over the next couple of days, you're a consumer of other services. And when you take a moment to be self-aware of how does the experience of being a consumer, let's say those cold calls even, how does it make you feel? When was the last time you gave yourself a moment to say, I know this is a cold call, but I'm actually, instead of being mad at the cold call, I'm going to take a moment and listen to it. Play ball. Sure, I'll bite. What you got, cold call person? What are you selling? I want to hear your structure. I want to hear your tonality. I want to hear exactly what you're saying. Because then as a consumer, I can put my consumer hat on and I can ask myself a couple questions. How did their approach make me feel? What was it about their approach that made me feel good or inspired to make a move? What was it that made me feel ambivalent about whatever they were pitching to me? And possibly, what was it that made me feel awful? Didn't make me feel good, made me feel inconvenienced, made me feel frustrated, maybe downright mad. What exactly was it? You see, going back to the fact that we're all running around with our hair on fire, being pulled in 9,000 different directions, most of the time, we're not even fully present when we're in consumer mode. And those lessons that we gain in consumer mode, if we ask ourselves a few questions, are absolutely critical, because then we can say to ourselves, what would we bring with us from this lesson to cascade into our own service business that we provide? And even if the service we were given was terrible, there's amazing lessons in that service to say, what would I do differently to improve it and make sure that the people I'm seeking to earn business with never feel that way? I want them to feel differently. You see, these are called consumer hat moments. Thank you for being fully present. I see some of you taking notes. Please write that down. Where is the moment going to show up over the next couple of days that I'm a consumer that I can say to myself, be fully present and absorb it so that I can bring lessons with me into my business? Now we're going to get right into some meat and potatoes. These are takeaways. You can take a screenshot of this. You can DM me on Instagram and I'll give you even more simple swaps. I have an entire instant download with many, many simple swaps. Though I like to go right into, let's give you some actionable changes to start thinking about different perspectives about what you're saying and how you're saying it. You see, most conversations, regardless of whether or not a sales pro knows the person on the other line, or if it's a complete stranger, we start with, hey, Jeff Richmond, how are you? We all start with calls like that, right? And what does the other person say? Feel free to shout it out or drop it in the chat.
Fine.
I'm fine. I'm great. You see, we as a culture have become so conditioned to these robotic scripting. It's called lazy language. Don't worry, we've all done it. We're all still learning to break these sea of sameness habits. It doesn't even mean anything. Is there anything worse than a cold caller calling up and going, hey, Joe Yates, I hate to bother you today, but how you doing? Do they care? Is that complete and utter BS? They just don't know what else to say. So one of the simple swaps to break that habit is to simply say, it's great to hear from you today. It's great to connect with you today. It's great to share time with you today. It's great to share a conversation with you today. For each and every one of the community members, hey, it's great to share time with you. Stop saying I'm just following up. You never have to follow up again. Rather, you're calling as promised. You're emailing the information as promised. No one wants to be followed up with. They want to know that you have a plan and that you're taking the next natural step that you committed to do in the last connection that you made with the individual. Same thing with circle back. Stop all the circling back. Nobody wants to follow up, circle back, touch base, lazy language. What do you say instead? You can say things like, hey, Jeff Richmond, I'm resurfacing the topic we discussed about a potential home investment in Orlando. When we last left off a few months ago, you shared with me A, B, and C. You see, reframing the circle back in a manner that says, I see you, I hear you, I remember what you said, I remember what we said together, and I also am delivering on my commitment that I said I would reconnect with you within this time period. Now, on the bottom left of this list, I have my listing and me listing. I really want to touch base on this about my and thee. You can see this my and thee strategy in a lot of things. You can see my team, my listing, my agent, my buyer, my seller. My nudge to you all is to think about swapping my with thee. There's an authority that comes into play. First of all, it's not your listing. How does it make the seller feel when you say all over your social media, it's my listing? It's not your listing. It's the seller's listing. What about if we reframe that and say the listing? For the team leaders out there, newsflash, it's not your team. It's the team. How does it make your team members feel when you run around and say, I'm a team leader of the Funk collection? Yes, that's my team. I started that team. However, now we've evolved and it's the team. It's the Orlando-based team that calls Windermere, Florida home. We get to hear Walt Disney's train from our house each day. The team. What about when you're representing a buyer and you walk into a showing, if the listing agent happens to be there and you say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Listing Agent, here's my buyers. They're not your buyers. They're the buyers. Intentionality. I'll fly through some of these examples on the left. What's your budget? What's your preferred price range? Budget can make people feel like you're oppressive or pushing down on them. Simply giving them empowerment to say what's your preferred price range is much more inducive and conducive to them being open to giving you the number. Sometimes consumer client, they don't want to tell you the full meat and potatoes. They're afraid of what happens if they give you all the numbers up front. Just say, what's your preferred price range? What would you like to stay within? This next question is very prevalent when you're talking to potential sellers on a first call. We all know it. If we have a seller prospect on the call, what do we want to know? We want to know what's the seller's bottom line. The seller doesn't want to tell the agent because the seller wants the agent to say, what do you think the home is worth? And there's this tug of war that exists on a first call, and agents go, I pulled my hair out. Why won't they tell me what they want to sell for? Because it's a battle of the first call, right? Simply just say, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, just out of curiosity, and this isn't a firm number, I'm just getting a feel in the beginning, at what price would you no longer be a seller for? That same thing can apply when you're speaking to a buyer. You know, in Orlando, we're seeing a very hyper-segmented market. Some of the hyper-niche markets are more of a buyer's market. Some are more of a seller's market. Some are a blend. The level of inventory can also be driven by different price points. What we're seeing is a very dynamic market. And when speaking with a buyer, it's very simple to say, well, at what price would you no longer be a buyer when you're making that investment in Windermere, Florida? Like, where is that? Nope, call us out. This is where we're out. Home versus property. This is fun. When you're speaking with a seller, you refer to the dwelling as a property. You want to start the disassociation. Rather than talking to the seller about a home, which continues to reinforce this is the home in which they built all the memories. Right? There's also another stat. I believe this was in 2024. You'd have to fact check it online, but it was 45% of Americans find that moving is more stressful than a divorce. Well, we all know moving is not a very fun thing to do. So start that disassociation. Sellers, you refer to it as a property. When you're talking to a buyer, you refer to it as a home because that buyer will start envisioning themselves. And then one of my additional favorite simple swaps is what's your timeline? There's a lot of different simple swaps we can swap out when we're asking what the timeline is. Don't worry, I'm going to give you some more on this call today. One of the most impactful is just to simply ask, how important is it for you to be in the home before X? So associate a timeline. Right now we're in April. Oh my gosh, I almost said March. The time flies when you get older. Really common question that agents in Orlando are asking is, how important is it that you are in the home before summer of 2026? Or perhaps if they say that they're making a move for school, we have a tie down that would be, how important is it you're in the home in Windermere before school starts, which is that second week of August. Now that gives you your tie down, and it starts to give a point of association because, let's face it, consumers do not know what timeline means in the real estate industry. All right, so far I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to have a drink of water. I hope you are hydrated and caffeinated. I love seeing this chat going. Any questions so far? I'm going to take a look at chat. And if someone has a question too, you can feel free to open your mic before we take our next adventure.
Well, first off, I love this. And I just wanted to jump in and say, you're capturing some really critical items here that I think it's so overlooked. Any number of these items, you could say, well, that's a small shift, but it's not a small shift, because what happens is when you express this over thousands of calls throughout a year, the difference is icon agent versus not icon agent. The difference is I made $500,000 versus $100,000. The difference is massive. And then the next year it compounds, and the next year it compounds, and the next year it compounds. And so for those of you who are here, who are taking notes, staying fully engaged, like you all promised you would, right? right. Thanks. I love that you're staying fully engaged, because what happens is these are the 1%. Has anyone ever heard the golf? You guys know this about me. I am so not a sports guy. It's ridiculous. I'm such a band dork. But I will tell you that I understand the golf analogy, right? It's 1% shift on the head of the golf club when it strikes the ball, and 300 yards further, you're either knocking out a hole in one or you're knocking out your neighbor, right? One of the two things have happened based on that 1% shift. And we like to think, well, little things don't matter. These are not little things. These are massive. The way that you communicate is everything. There are subtle cues right now for all of us, by the way, myself included. There are subtle cues that all of us do that tell a person to move away from us. There are subtle cues that tell a person to move toward us and to gravitate inward. Some people do it more naturally. Some people do it more studied. I'm a more studied kind of a person, right? My original version of how I spoke to the world was not very well done. And then I read a lot of books and studied a lot of people like Renee and got better, right? And so this is something that all of us can master over time, but it takes effort. It takes taking notes, and then it takes practicing. You don't come to a seminar on April 8th and then you're like, all right, I got it. Woohoo! Thank God I showed up for that 90 minutes. Now I'm going to be an icon agent 8 times. Nope. You take notes, you put it on your wall, you study it, you practice in the mirror every day, you read the books, you get a coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so I appreciate this, Renee. It's really awesome. I hope I've given you enough time to take a drink.
Yes, you did. I appreciate that too. And it's interesting when you talk about the subtleties, right? Is first, there's dollars and opportunity in the details. Right, is when we think about some of the things that set others apart. Is I go back to the R&D example. I think I wrote an article on LinkedIn on R&D about 3 or 4 years ago, because I started noticing how many people sounded alike, how many people approach things the same way. It doesn't mean even, if you call someone, say, hi, how are you? The world isn't ending. Right. So the people who are like, hey, you just gave us simple swaps to change my from thee. What the hell does that even matter anyway? Well, it depends. When you start to be a little intentional, even by making these subtle adjustments, what happens is you sound different than all of the other people who reach out. Now, I'll also bring you back to the consumer hat moment. Another benefit of the consumer hat moment is you, as the consumer, start to notice patterns on how, let's say, the people who are salespeople that are bombarding you, whether it's text, email, or call. When you give yourself a gift of being present for that consumer hat moment, you start to notice that they too all sound alike. And quite frankly, most sound like stereotypical salespeople that are looking out for their next dollar instead of saying, I'm here to learn and earn the opportunity to serve you. I need to first understand what you're seeking to accomplish and by when, before I can make a commitment to give a solution. And that's called earning the right to make a recommendation. So these subtle differences, what they do is the other individual goes, hold on a second, Jeff Richmond called me and he sounded different. It's called the curiosity gap. So the other individual leans in. And I don't know about you, but I'll take every competitive edge I can have, even if that means some subtle word changes to create those curiosity gaps.
Yep, I love it. And you're not leading with ego, which I also really appreciate, Renee, because there is this ego thing that shows up in real estate where somebody shows up and they're like, I know what you need. And it's like, you don't own this property. And so F off, because you don't know what I need yet. You haven't asked any questions. Can you imagine if you went to a surgeon, they walked into the room and they're like, listen, let's go ahead and cut your leg off. You're like, whoa. That might be fun for you, but no, because you haven't talked to me yet. Now, if I've got something going on, gangrene or something I hadn't noticed, like maybe. So this is about earning the right. I love that verbiage, by the way, earning the right. That's beautiful.
And I just want y'all to know, Jeff did not see my slides or really know much more than a few bullet points over what I was sharing. I mean, I shared with him and asked him, hey, is this appropriate for your group? But I feel like you keep just like giving me here's the next fluid next step, right? It's like you knew. When we think about how few times people move. I get it. There's investors and there's people who make multiple investments and have vacation homes. I understand all that. If we just look at consumer habits, right, in the United States, the average American moves, the stat is something like every 7 to 8 years. But I've been hearing some data that's showing that that's even increasing and that we might see like the average American could wait 10 years to make a move. Not to be that much of a surprise, especially when you look at, I think it's a little north of 50% of all mortgages in the US are still sub 4%, right? Like we all know what's going on in the market right now. I share all that with you to remind you that no one wants to move. Like last time I checked, the fun thing to do isn't to pack up every single thing that you own and buy a new property and make that move and be completely displaced. So if you want people to do things that they typically do not want to do, then pros, that's you. That's all of us on this call. Professionals first need to earn and learn the honest, true reason that is big enough to prompt them to make that next step. So there's 3 factors that can motivate decisions. One is things that they want to move toward, so incentive, solutions, right? I'm in Orlando. We help a lot of families who relocate from other areas or perhaps they're retiring. And one of the most common things we hear is, golly, I'm up in the New York area or Michigan area and I'm so tired of the snow. Well, guess what? In Orlando, we don't have snow, although we did get our first 2 days of frost that I've had in 25 years here, but I digress. That was an outlying year. When they're saying the weather, that's something they want to move toward, right? So they have an incentive to get rid of that snow. Things they want to move away from: fear, pain, obstacles, pebble in their shoe, and things that make their heart sing. That's self-fulfillment. That's going to be something that motivates them. We also, the Funk Collection here in Orlando, about 50% of our annual business for over 15 years has been helping families who seek to have a vacation home near Walt Disney World and rent that out as a short-term rental. Now, that's something that makes their heart sing. They probably visit Disney once, 2, 3 times a year, and they're spending incredible amounts of money on hotel rooms for grandmas and grandpas and kids and all the things. And when they learn that they can make an investment into real estate and stop spending money on hotel rooms and rather invest into real estate and achieve all sorts of benefits, that is something that excites them and make their heart sing. Now, with decisions, there's also 4 factors that drive decisions. Now, I call this the anti-value proposition. Let me know if you've ever heard this in a training, because I'm going to tell you, it's driving me crazy. I'm so sick of it. I'll just put it on the table. You'll always get the good, bad, and the ugly from me is, hey, agents, you have to articulate your value proposition. Have you ever heard that before?
Yep.
Articulate your value proposition. Go on with yourself. Go do it. Write it down. Most agents don't even know what that means, and it's not their fault. We have to go deeper, pause, breathe, think, slow down the process to speed up the outcome. What actually drives decisions that can help you craft what your value proposition is? Well, there are 4 factors. How do you help clients save and buy back time? Perhaps one of the most important, although these are all 4 neck and neck. How do you help clients save money? You're helping a buyer invest and acquire real estate. You want to keep as much of their money in their pocket, correct? How do you do that? How do you help your clients mitigate risk? That's a big one. Obviously, you have awareness and wisdom and experience that you know where some of the pitfalls can be, traps that could be stepped in. And it's your job to say, client, if you go that way, here's one of the downsides. Here's one of the risks that you might encounter. You help them mitigate risk. And then this one is, kind of like, how do you make their heart sing? It's what solutions do you provide that help elevate their status? Let's go back to that vacation home example. Is one of my favorite clients to help serve is that family that calls up and says, we've been visiting Disney World for many, many years with our kids, and golly, we keep staying at the Grand Floridian or the Contemporary, and we're spending all this money, and we just really want a more turnkey solution, and we want to be able to decide on Thursday that there's a great flight available, airfare the next day, and just hop on a plane with our bag and not even need a toothbrush. And we've always dreamed of owning our very first vacation home, our second property that we've ever owned. That's helping them elevate their status. So that helps drive their decision. The more that pros can answer many ways that you help with solutions in each of these 4 factors, that, my friends, is what helps you articulate what your value proposition is. Which one of these do you feel is one of your strongest suits? Do you feel most that you help them save and buy back time, save money, mitigate risk, or elevate status? Let's see it. Jeff says, money, keep money in their pocket, right? Yes. All right, we're going to get into that first call. I promised Jeff Richmond that I would give you 6 critical questions that the pros can ask that turns that first call into a client. Good news is I actually brought 8 questions, so you're getting 2 bonuses. Jeff didn't even know that either. But first, I have curiosity for you all. What is the desired outcome of a first call? In this case, let's say with buyers. What's the desired outcome of your first call with a buyer? Christine says, and I feel I'm working with a lot of families right now with elders or family that has passed. Right. And you provide, right, Christine, and you provide tremendous value at a time that they need a true educator, advocate, service provider to help them navigate this important time. Jeff says 6, cross out. No, 8 critical questions. We always like to go bigger or go home. Jenny says the desired outcome to get the appointment for the buyer consultation. Jenny, you win. That's perfect. You see, in about 18 months ago, when the regulation change happened to our industry, which, you know, all people have different opinion about that regulation change in the real estate industry. However, in many ways, that regulation change created some of the best opportunity for service providers to do what I call be better than their fee, to look at the services that we provide, to elevate those services, which then means if our services elevate, what happens with our fee? No. Continues to be better. If you use sticky notes, I'm nudging you right now, or even if you have some note paper, like I always have a little notebook right here, write down on a piece of paper, be better than your fee, and stick it on your computer, be obsessed with it. Because most people in that first call, what they do is they default to being a stereotypical salesperson. They just want to get into the, like, how do I get them into the showing immediately? How do I get them? I want to transact with them. And they just start to get into this advice monstering where they're just like salesperson vomit all over the individual, instead of first saying, okay, I have a plan and I have a structure of questions that's going to create a curiosity gap. It's going to create the individual to lean in and is going to get you exactly what Christine says, which is get the buyer strategy session. There's another simple swap for you. It's not a buyer consultation, it's a buyer strategy session. How long should that first call be, EXP community? How long should the first call be? I'm testing you. Let's see. Jenny says 3 to 5 minutes. Joe says 15 minutes. Scott says 15 minutes. Michelle says maybe 5. Tyler says set the appointment in 10 minutes or less, long enough to address their needs. Marcy says 15 minutes. Britt, 15. Wow, isn't that interesting? Okay. First call could vary, though you have a plan. Aim to keep your first call about 15 minutes. Yes, it could be less if you get the appointment quick. If you can go in for the when would be a good time over the next couple of days to sit down and have a buyer strategy session, go for it. Though most first calls, you need to give yourself enough time to unpack with these 6 key questions that I'll be sharing with you. And the important fact to remember about your first call is if your first call is going over 15-ish, maybe 20 minutes, no more than 20. 20 is like red alert, alert, stop, stop, stop. The reason you don't want to go longer is because that means you're slipping into consultation mode. And the first call is not a consultation. A first call is for you to learn valuable information to set you up for success in an actual consultation environment. That consultation could be on Zoom with all deciding making parties, could be in person. That's your preference, though a consultation is not a phone call. This, one more time, is not a consultation. This is a discovery call where you learn, and that sets you up for your consult. So about 15 minutes. You get into that 20-minute zone, you're going way too long. And I want to remind you that consultation time is where you sit down and you actually earn that BBA so that you turn a customer into a client. And that BBA is what unlocks the, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this paperwork is what enables me to start going to work on your behalf. No paperwork, no service. Paperwork, service. So what are some of the top 6, I'm starting with 4 here, questions that will spark more meaningful conversations with your buyers on the first call? I want you to take note because when I'm done with these 6 plus 2 bonus questions, I'm going to ask you, what do you not see in these questions? I know I'm getting real tricky, so stick with me on these. One of the first questions, what is prompting you to move to Windermere, Florida? What's prompting the move? Hey, Renee, we're in Chicago now. We're thinking about making a move. We want to get down there for that Florida sunshine. We really love Windermere. We love being near Disney. Fantastic. So what's prompting the move from Chicago to Windermere? This open-ended question usually unpacks a story. Now, if you need what I call a bump-up question, something that draws a little bit more out, then you can also ask them, well, you mentioned Windermere is important, and it sounds like being in place before school starts, second week of August, is a priority for you and the family. Help me understand, what is specifically drawing you to consider Windermere and Winter Garden? What specifically drew you to it? Now, what question number 2 is going to do, if this didn't come out in the first question, is it's going to start to unpack things like, we have friends in Orlando, my in-laws live in Orlando, we are relocating. The more meat and potatoes that is that tie down to why are they making the move, which then brings you to more understanding as to the pebble in their shoe, right? What are they running from and what are they running toward? Question number 3, super, super critical. And this question number 3, I think it might be my favorite. This is a newer question for the Funk collection. We did not used to ask this question prior to the regulation change. Though now, so regulation change, what are we almost at? 2 years. Can you believe it? My gosh. 2 years since the regulation change. This question is perhaps the most important because it's what I call a context grabbing question. It's a gold mine. When was the last time you purchased a home? Or again, if I give you an example, I want you to think of examples in your relative market. As the Funk collection helps a lot of buyers who buy vacation homes. They rent out for short-term rental. We always ask, when was the last time you purchased an investment property? One of the benefits of that question is because that's going to help us understand, are we talking to an HGTV dreamer, aspirational, just learning baby kindergarten steps of what it means to own a vacation home? Or are we going to hear the individual say, I own 6, we're in 2 different states, we're adding Orlando as our 3rd state, we understand the game, we know property management companies, we know the Airbnb model, we know all this. See what I mean with context grabbing? Also, as a primary residence move, when you say, when was the last time you purchased a home? And they say it's been about 6, 7, 8 years, you now have the understanding that they know nothing about how real estate pros serve their clients differently as a result of the regulation change, other than those narratives and the news. And how accurate was the news at reporting on the regulation change? Wah, wah, wah. So if you had to ask me the question that is probably most important, it's that, when was the last time you purchased a home? Next question. How long did you live in, or how long did you experience a pebble in the shoe? So what do I mean by this is most often we're going to ask something like, you're making a move from Chicago. Well, you last purchased a home about 7 years ago. How long did you live in Chicago? If they tell me that they haven't purchased a home in 7 years, I want to know a little deeper. Great. Well, how long have you lived in Chicago? Because that's going to give us what? The gift of more context. Sometimes in question number 1, what you're going to hear is they're going to just start telling a big, big story. They might said to you, you know what, we're relocating. Golly, we are so tired of the commute we have from our place of business in Chicago, and I'm able to relocate my job. Actually, I'm going to be working not too far from Orlando International Airport, and I need to be in place before the fall. Then the question we would ask is, let me ask you, how long did you have that long 2-hour commute? How long were you doing that commute in Chicago? Or you might actually say, how long of a commute have you been navigating? Well, we only live, a few minutes, but I'm in traffic for 2 hours a day round trip. This is incredibly valuable information as you start to tie down into the solutions you're going to provide when they make the move to Orlando or your market, right? So how long did you?
Renee, may I ask a question on that?
Yes.
It feels like the intent there is to lean on the pain just a little bit, right? It's the equivalent of going to the massage therapist. They find where it hurts on the shoulder. They press more there because eventually we can resolve the pain. And so it feels like that's the intent, is to allow them to have a brief moment to really reflect on how painful that was, because it motivates them into this behavior. Does that feel aligned?
That feels aligned, and it's most often going to bring out the pebble in the shoe reflection. It can also, though, be around situational, right? Because this question number 4 is very much going to depend on what you unpack on 1 and 2.
Right.
What I want you to remember is you want to squeeze in a how long did you question. It might be regional. It might be pebble in the shoe. It might even be, well, when they say, we've built a lifetime of memories here, and it's now time for us to downsize. Our kids are in college. Oh, fantastic. Like, you had a lot of years building memories there. Like, my mom heart feels that. Like, how many years were you there? Like, you can lean into that. Just make sure you lean in with some empathy and relate, because they want to feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. They don't want to feel sold. Remember, this is first call moment. We are not in first call period let me rephrase that. In our first calls, we are not in rapport yet. We have not earned rapport. We are wanting to make them feel like it's safe with us, because it is, because we're not going to make them feel sold.
I want to make one other observation for everyone on the call. Did you hear how Renee said, my mom heart felt X? And that's true empathy. And for all my fellas on the call, empathy is where you feel someone else's emotion, not fake it. And so I wanted to point that out, though, because she actually felt an aligned emotion with the other person. And while you said we're not in rapport, after your mom heart felt that, and then you spoke back, the other person felt that you felt that, which means you were further in rapport. So you're building rapport in real time.
Absolutely. And also, there's plenty of times, let's call it what it is, good, bad, or ugly. You're always going to get, like, behind the scenes, there's a mess going on at the same time as we know our strengths. There have been thousands of phone calls, and still to this day, where someone inbounds me and there is not alignment. If someone calls up and says, hey, I've been a FSBO, I cannot stand agents, but prove to me why I should hire you, I'm not their girl. I'm not their pro. I've never called a FSBO. I've never worked with a FSBO. And that doesn't mean that those of you who work with FSBOs, I know it works. Not my jam, right? So it's okay to admit if you're not in alignment, then heck, refer it out. Give it to somebody else. Say, you know what? I have the perfect individual for you. Would you be open to an introduction? This individual does X, Y, and Z, knows this inside and out. This is the market. They get it. Refer it out. Be in alignment. That goes back to, like, being your true self and stopping with the sea of sameness. If you're for everyone, you're for no one. All right. So your final 2, but then 2 bonus. When do you foresee yourself enjoying? Now, this is where you insert solutions. So let's go back to our vacation home buyers, right? Think about They visit Orlando once, twice a year. We ask this question often. Well, when do you foresee yourself enjoying your next Orlando vacation at Disney World rather than trying to fit in those like really cramped hotel rooms? When do you foresee yourself enjoying the ability to put your Google Flight Alert on and start grabbing those last minute flight deals to just come down with your handbag and your laptop? You got to get them. When Jeff Richmond said, well, we were kind of getting them to look back. Now we're inching on, when do you foresee yourself, which, by the way, EXP community, when you foresee yourself enjoying gets you out of asking that dreaded question, what's your timeline? Terrible question. Terrible. They don't know their timeline. They're not a real estate pro. When was the last time a professional showed you all of the numbers involved with making a decision around investing in Orlando vacation home real estate?
I love that. I love that so much.
Right. And you can adapt this too. Like these questions they're not just for buyers. You make some simple swaps. I get to coach and train agents on the regular. And, I do a listing accelerator class. I do buyer consultation classes. I'm kind of giving you buyer focus, but I know you all are a skilled group that I'm sure you can see some simple adjustments. And this is absolutely applicable to your first call with a seller. When was the last time a professional showed you the difference between the online algorithm computer-generated valuations as compared to a professional assessment of the equity you hold today? That's a question for your sellers. What do you mean? Every other agent a seller's calling up is saying, now's the best time to list and sell your home. No, it's not. It depends on the human. When you ask a question like, oh, have you been checking out your home value on the Zestimates and on all these computer-generated algorithms? Yep. When was the last time that you looked at a professional assessment of the equity that you hold today? Well, how do those two things different? Well, there you go. Curiosity, gap, lean in, go in for the appointment. Would it be helpful to have a few additional opportunities to consider in addition to homes in Windermere? You mentioned being close to Disney World is important to you. Would it be helpful to know that there's 3 additional communities that will give you the preferred price range, the 5-bedroom, and that beautiful sparkling pool in the backyard, maybe even save you a little bit more money 2 communities over? Yes, heck yeah, that would be helpful. You see, would it be helpful positions you to stop advice monstering? Because most agents will just say, you said you want to move to Windermere. Great. Did you know that you can get that same house in Dr. Phillips' Winter Garden in Claremont? There's a house over in Claremont. Did you look at that one? That's how most salespeople talk, some version of that. Instead of asking with curiosity, you gain the yes. You gain a, yes, I would like help, which then gets them saying yes for you to go in for the when would be a good time over the next couple of days to connect on a buyer strategy session. We're not ready for a buyer strategy session. We're just browsing. Fantastic. That's smart. Most buyers start by browsing online. I love hearing you're doing that. Out of curiosity, when would be a good time over the next couple of months to take a look at how the home values has changed or how properties trading in Windermere have changed? Just pivot your time period. They don't want to meet in 2 days, next couple of days, then change it out to a couple of months. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute. Questions, thoughts on our 6+2 bonus questions? Advice monster. I love, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I need that. I
I agree. By the way, Liz says this is great info. Also a fellow Icon Award winner multiple times over there. By the way, I love the presupposition in question number 2. That's why I said I loved it. This is a kind of pre-hypnotic technique for anyone who doesn't know. And these are like, look, there's a differentiation that you're making here, Renee, between scripts and bad scripts. right? Like these are still scripts. If you said these exactly this way every single time, that's scripting. However, they're terrific and they're much better than most of what is circulated out there in the R&D department, right? And I love that you're making that kind of push as well, because I could name a couple really high level names who really push the R&D thing, and not to do that. So, but when was the last time a professional showed you? What is she doing? She's calling herself a professional, but she's not saying, I'm a professional. How many agents out there, by the way, have you heard say, well, the reason to hire me is because I answer my phone and because I'm like, dude, so does Wells Fargo. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's ridiculous. That is not value. But what's interesting is she didn't have to claim the value by listing a bunch of bullet points on her, like, realtor resume. Like, I answer my phone and I tell the truth, and they're like, yeah, I freaking hope so. I'm paying you % of the value of my house. So, but she's presupposing that she's a professional. You can do this with a lot of different scripts, and I really like it. So I would love to hear from anyone else. Michelle McCormack, also terrific agent out in Oregon here, says, I love beginning a question with, would it be helpful to, or out of curiosity. Absolutely. Yep. What was it about that, Michelle, that you loved so much?
Well, I just think it gets it just makes it sound a little less salesy, right? It sort of ties in with just being authentic, as Renee mentioned, of just, I don't want to be a salesy, cheesy person, right? And I'm not, but this just adds another just sort of thing to remember of, this is how I could make that work for me. I like it. I like it a lot.
I love that. I see Christine Kites has her hand up. What was your question or comment, Christine?
Hi, Renee. I was just curious because I know that you were leaning in on these questions going for the yes. So you had a question there to lean towards that yes. And I have followed and, read Split the Difference, followed Chris Voss, and I've used a lot of his type of questions. And in that one that you had in there about setting up a time to meet with the client, the buyer. I've also used more of the Chris Voss direction, where is it unreasonable to find a little time to meet in the next couple of days? And it automatically has them think like, no, yes, no, it wouldn't be. But so then it leans towards the yes. Naturally for us to, we naturally, or you learn they can't. It's like, oh yes, it would be because I can't, but I could. So they try to reframe when, if the next 2 days didn't work.
You're spot on. And I love that you're bringing up Chris Voss too. He has really, really great thought leadership and approaches. And also Chris has an approach I find a lot of, because I'll just tell you, like, I realize women don't always associate with men and men don't always associate with women, whether we like to admit it or not. And I've heard it before. It's like, oh, well, Renee's too, whatever. Renee's too focused on the feel. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And that's what's worked for me. We have to know who we are, so we show up how we do. And one of the things I love about Chris Voss is he does often go a little on that sharper edge. So Chris will say things like, would it be entirely crazy for us to think about a time we could get together on Friday? Right? Like he goes into that negative approach first. That's a tool in the tool chest. And I love that you bring it up, because the more tools we have in our tool chest, the more ability we have to pull them out. When Jeff Richmond was mentioning, I'm not necessarily bringing scripts, but scripts are scripts. Like, we all love movies. We've probably cried at a movie, or we've probably got frustrated or amped up by a movie. Those are scripts, right? And there's people who read really bad scripts, and there are really bad scripts, and then there's really great scripts. As someone who loves communication strategy and has a passion to change the way the world thinks about their communication, it's the robotic scripting that is for the birds. It's feeling like these papers that darn well these cold callers have, and quite frankly, in the real estate industry, it's the way I was first trained is they say this and you say this, and they say this and you say this, often not really leading into much curiosity. And so when we think differently about how we position questions, what we're doing is, when you're asking a question, it is impossible for you to be wrong. Let me repeat that again. When you ask a question, it is impossible for you to be wrong, which that hilarious graphic that Jeff put into chat with the advice monstering is there are plenty of agents. You can throw a paper airplane in every direction and you're going to find agents out there that are happy to advice monster and tell you all the reasons why you should sell today, list today, buy today, all of this garbage. Could it be possible that the sales industry takes an additional perspective of what if we first start what's most important to them? And the only way we can do that is by first starting with curiosity, which then means we're not wrong, because I don't know if it's a good time to sell. I'll tell you one of the most recent reviews. I work together with my husband, as I mentioned earlier. His name is also Jeffrey Funk. He's my favorite realtor on the planet. He and I have worked together for about 27 years, very closely. And one of the most recent listing strategy meetings Jeff went on, the seller ended up giving us a positive 5-star review. And it went something like this. My husband, Jeff, was sitting at the listing consultation table and determined through curiosity that listing the subject property wasn't the best timing for the seller. So he gave additional solutions, ideas. He then went into what I'm about to share with you next, which is always setting the next connection in a never-ending conversation, and said, well, would it be helpful if we revisited the home values in about 3 months? You know, the market is very dynamic right now. There's about 40% of listings in the MLS in Southwest Orlando that are failing. I keep my eye on all the data. Would it be helpful if we reconnected in a couple of months and we'll just do another equity assessment? That seller said, yes, thank you. As they walked to the front door, the seller stopped Jeff, my husband, and he said, I got to tell you, you're the only one that didn't shove paperwork down my throat and tell me I needed to list today. Where can I leave you a review? Now, what he didn't walk away with was a listing agreement, but that was by choice because it wasn't best for the human on the other side of that table to list today. What he did walk away with is solidifying the relationship. What he did walk away with is someone who said, when I'm ready, you will be my first call. And most importantly, what he walked away with is the next appointment, which I'm going to show you next as I share my screen. Let me get back into my screen share.
While you pull up that screen share, Renee, that you asked earlier, what's the point of a call, or what's the point of an appointment, or what's the goal, I think is the way that you phrased it. And I always think back to a closed door Tony Robbins session that Lexi and I went to, where they spoke about BAM FAM and BAM FAM, which just means book a meeting from a meeting. And honestly, that core foundational philosophy has been our success paradigm for every business we've built, which is no matter what call you're on with anyone, just book the next meeting. That's always your goal. And if you keep that going, what's interesting, it's not that you're filibustering your way into success. It's literally that at some point, most agents forget to follow up. And they'll end a call like, well, sure hope we talk again someday, Gersh. And then that's the end of the relationship. And at that point, it's someone like Renee is jumping in and sweeping that business because you didn't follow up. And it used to take, I don't know what the statistic is now, it used to be like 7 to 10 follow-ups to close a deal. These days, it's probably like 194. I mean, it's insane. You have to be on top of this stuff. But here's what's beautiful. If you just book the next meeting during the current meeting, you got them. You had them.
And one of the trainings that I train is how to host and book effective meetings. And it's a deep dive for about 90 minutes specifically on it's micro, and it's really not for my high Ds, although high Ds need it the most. It's how you set up the calendar invite and the strategy on the way the appointment is named and the time periods. Y'all, we can set appointments in our calendars for 10 and 15 minutes. Why does everybody default to 30 and 60? Because that's just what the system says. You know, being in a never-ending conversation, which cues us up just on time perfectly here, allows you to never follow up again. Follow-up is for the birds. Jeff Richmond, you know why most agents do what you said? They'll go, okay, well, circle back in a little while. Nice chatting with you. And let's hope and a prayer is because most agents don't pause long enough to have a plan to know that if the call went in a certain direction, what the next step is. And I'll give you an example. I wasn't planning on sharing this one just because I want to be sensitive of time, but I think we're okay on time. We go till 1:30, right? 1:30 Eastern?
Correct.
Okay. It's called the end of the driveway conversation, and it's one of my favorite strategies to make sure you have a never-ending conversation. For those that represent and serve buyers, have you ever found yourself at the end of the driveway after a day of showings, and it goes a little something like this? The buyers look at each other and they'll say, well, these just didn't hit the mark today, but we're going to keep looking. Thanks so much. And the agent stands at the end of the driveway and they go, okay, great. Thanks for a great day. Bye. And everybody goes their own way. Has that happened to anybody before? I know it's happened to everybody. It's happened to me. Before we developed the never-ending conversation and the end of the driveway conversation, the strategy was born out of me getting frustrated that they walked away and I lost the opportunity because I didn't do what Jeff Richmond is saying, is book an appointment from an appointment. So what do you do instead? You know in advance. 3 hours before, some of these properties are just not hitting the mark. I can tell. I asked them to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and these are all hitting 3s and 4s. Today's not the day. Don't worry. It's okay. We have a plan. You get to the last showing. You're at the end of the driveway. Buyers are going to go off. They're going to go home, have a glass of wine, talk about the day over dinner, whatever they do. You have to have a plan. Hey, buyers, it looks like today wasn't the day. However, we gained a lot of really great intel of what the market's doing. One of the best next steps for me is to go back to the office to pull the most recent inventory. I'm also going to check some of the EXP exclusives. There's a program we have called EXP Access. And yes, there can be some pocket listings there. I'm going to rerun the inventory there. I know the two of you are going to go back. You're probably going to have a glass of wine. If they don't drink, don't say wine. Make them feel seen, heard, and valued, whatever they do at home. You're probably going to have a conversation behind my back and talk about this over dinner. That's normal. The next step is for us to regroup. When would be a good time? Tomorrow or over the next couple of days. You need to insert your relative time frame for us to reconnect and go over what I find when I rerun the inventory and the questions the two of you have after you talk about it over dinner. Tomorrow morning? Fantastic. 10:15? Great. I'm going to drop a 15-minute appointment on our calendars, and I'll look forward to chatting with you tomorrow at 10:15. Let's just grab 15 minutes to get a regroup. It's that simple. Never, ever, 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 ever leave the end of the driveway without the next appointment. And we are so gifted in our industry that these moments appear on repeat all over. For those taking notes, what I want you to come away with today is, how do you continue to focus on a never-ending conversation? That means even at the day of closing. I'll give you one more scenario. Day of closing. The stat in NAR is like 85 or 87% of buyers are absolutely thrilled with their buyer's agent and would recommend them to a friend or a family, but only 15% hire the same agent again. How painful is that? What if you were prepared at the closing that you already had your next appointment? Book a meeting from a meeting, just like Jeff Richmond says. Well, Renee, what do you mean? I don't have anything else for them to do. Yes, you do. Those closing gifts? Most agents give a closing gift. Stop giving them that day. Send it 2 to 3 weeks prior, or drop it off, 2 to 3 weeks later, or drop it off 2 to 3 weeks later. Why do you do that? Because it's an excuse. At the closing table, what you want to do is say, hey, perfectly normal. I know it's overwhelmed moment and it's so exciting, right? About 2 or 3 weeks in, most buyers I've helped find homes in Windermere have shared with me that by that time they're starting to get acclimated. You might need landscaping recommendations. You might need different recommendations or connections. Could it be possible we grab about 10, 15 minutes on the calendar? I just want to make sure you have everything you need, and I have a few things to go over with you. Just grab that next 15-minute time frame. If for some reason you can't, that's where the closing gift strategy comes in play. Why are we giving closing gifts when they're so busy that day and they're literally packed up in a moving truck? That's when they're busy, and that's when the field is very active. You want to operate in a space where the field is thin, where there's not much going on. The gift goes further 2 to 3 weeks prior. You know what else happens when you give the gift few weeks after? They say thank you and you say, fantastic. You know, the best time to ask for a favor is when someone says thank you. So they say thank you for the gift and you say, could it be possible that you could take about 30 seconds and drop a review of your experience of working with the Funk Collection to help you acquire your Windermere home on the golf course? A little bit of a pro tip there. Okay, so I promised you I was going to ask you, what did you not notice about the questions during the first call? What did you not notice that were being asked? Yes, Christine, what size of home? Yep. What else? Beds, baths. Yes. 100%. Order taking BS. Yeah, oh my gosh. Can I please come back? I love this group. You guys are on point. Jeff Yates says price point. Yeah, or Joe Yates. Joe, that's one of those little asterisk questions you're probably going to end up asking. Also, it usually unpacks itself in the first two questions, but I remember I referenced like bump up questions. You may need to bump it up a little bit. If they don't unpack it, you can just simply say, you mentioned 5 bedrooms in Windermere. Being really close to Disney is super important, or that 20-minute commute time to your place of business by Orlando International Airport. That is totally doable. In fact, there's a few neighborhoods that we can achieve that by. I'm going to send them over to you after this call. Just one last thing. What is the preferred price range so we can keep a broad paint stroke of what the inventory is trading for right now? Because one of my jobs is to save you time and make sure you don't have to search endlessly online. So I'm going to be sending you an overview of what the homes are trading for, exactly what we discussed today. So that's you just sneak it in. But did you also notice how you want to sneak in one of those, I save you time? You could also say how pros save their buyers time. Very good. All right. And then as we bring this home, what is the number one question that costs agents on the first call? I've hinted around about it a couple times today. I've actually even had it on a couple slides. It is literally the worst question that costs so much opportunity, not just for agents, but also for the consumer, because this one question is just riddled with so much lack of context. Agents, I am imploring you to please stop asking, what is your timeline? What is your timeline is terrible. Would it be helpful if I shared a little bit of why it's terrible? I see heads saying yes. Yes. See what I did there? What is your timeline? You all on this call are pros. You understand timelines in real estate. You understand relative to your market, relative to if a deal is cash or finance, relative to regional specificity, like our New York friends who are attorney-based states. Like we do relocations from New York to Florida. And let me tell you, it is two completely different animals because they have attorneys involved and all the things where Florida's a title state. We can close a property cash in days, super fast. Finance, we can get a finance property closed with the right lender done in like 9-10 days, sometimes even 7 days. It is a completely different animal. So when we say as a pro to a consumer who, remember, most consumers do not transact in real estate 6, 7, possibly 8, 9, 10 years, they don't understand the context of what a timeline even means. So when we ask questions like, when was the last time you purchased a home? When was the last time you purchased a vacation home? When was the last time you traded real estate? You're going to get that context much different. You're going to start to unpack. You mentioned a finance purchase. When was the last time you financed a purchase as compared to cash? You want to start to dive into the specifics. If they knew what their timeline was, they wouldn't need us. It is one of these questions that we say, what's your timeline? And the number of agents I coach and train who've told me, it's possibly thousands and it's definitely hundreds. Hey, Renee, I had this buyer. I asked what their timeline was. They told me it was like 4 to 6 months out. And then I realized I was like following up. And I found out they went with a different agent because they accelerated their timeline or they elongated their timeline. Like, what other qualifying questions did you ask about their understanding? What is your understanding about investing in a primary residence in Windermere in spring of 2026? Not much. Would it be helpful if I shared with you how we help buyers just like yourself relocate from up north, save time, and make sure you're getting into that ideal property? Yes. Fantastic. So the takeaway here is, please do some jam sessions with each other. Please get into curiosity with each other, meaning the pros on this call, and come up with additional approaches as to the way you can unpack what timeline means to them, what context they have to determine what that timeline is. Lastly, on that context, it could be as simple as a misalignment that people who move from up north to Florida often don't realize that our school season starts second week of August. Their school starts second week of September, and many up north. We get a lot of Northeast, Michigan, New York, things of that nature. That migration pattern, they don't understand. Florida, our kids have to go back. I can't stand it as a mom. I'm like, you got to go back to school already? I want you home longer. They go back like second Monday or second Tuesday of August. It's awful. People up north don't understand that. So if we're not asking the right questions, we miss out on an opportunity. If there was a slide for you to take a photo of, this is it. Being on a mission to be better than your fee is the mission, because we can continually increase the service we provide. We can continually think of new ways that we can deliver value if we continue to remember that it's our job to be better than our fee. It is our job to be better than our fee. And you know what else happens when we focus on being better than our fee? Is we gain a confidence about what our fee is. It's not an arbitrary number. It didn't just get plucked out of the air. And we're not talking about numbers on this call, because we have, I believe, a few different brokerages represented here. Though I will say, when we're intentional about our value proposition, who we're seeking to serve, the solutions we provide, we then say, well, hey, this fee can continue to climb because our service continues to climb. Last ask is, are we connected on Instagram? I am Renee_Funk. Here's a QR code. If you DM me exactly, the word exactly, you're going to get an agent field guide with many of the magic words. You've heard me saying them for about 90 minutes now that are in this book, exactly what to say. This particular copy I'm holding is a custom copy. I had the opportunity to write the foreword for this edition. And for the first 3 people who post on their Instagram stories, which I would love for you to post this one because we're on a mission to be better than our fee, post a photo of Be Better Than Your Fee on your Instagram stories and DM me. I will send you a copy of the custom book. All right? Let's all be on a mission. And if you would like the field guide, all you got to do is DM me the word exactly, and it will auto download a field guide, which is a printable document with a whole lot of simple swaps and magic key phrases. You all get it. And that's freaking awesome, and a testament to your collaboration with one another, the EXP community that you get to call home. And I'm proud to be a part of this room today. So Jeff, Richmond, Lexi, I know she's not here, but I'll send Lexi a whole bunch of love because she's the freaking best.
Renee, absolutely outstanding today, as always. I mean, never had a doubt, but you always exceed expectations, which is part of why you are who you are. And thank you for that. I want to provide a couple minutes for anybody who had comments or questions in the group. We have, by the way, I'm looking through here and we have so many top producers. I mean, people selling 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 homes a year. I mean, this is a rad group today, and really, really high level producers. So I'm excited for that. But I also want to give people the chance to ask some great questions and engage our guests. So Christine Kites, hey, good to see you again. Hold on, let me bring you up on stage. All right.
Hi, Renee. Sorry, it just leaned into another question that I had when and I put it in the chat up here. You had said have you purchased a home before, right? And I know that in our times right now, we just don't even know if they've been starting their process last year, if they're continuing this year. We did have a little bit of a dip, so they've restarted. Maybe they're continuing their efforts this year. So one of the things that we usually lean in on is if they've seen any homes or toured any homes at this point, because we're also trying to see whether or not we're going to discuss or send something to them that they already, oh yeah, I've already seen that one, I already saw that one. And so we don't know unless we know a little bit more too about their process and where they're at in it.
Yeah.
How do you gauge that? And also then obviously lean into whether or not they've had an opportunity to meet with another broker, and we don't know that they know that there's possibly some type of agreement that's also been made in some way.
Yeah. On the working with an agent or not working with the agent, I will nudge all of you to know your local regulations and talk to your local brokers and team leaders, because there's some specificities in some states on how that's navigated. I'm speaking from a team leader in Florida, and know that we here in Florida can say simply and do say, which agent in town are you working with? We do not say, are you working with an agent? We say, which agent in town are you working with? Because just like all those cold calls that we all get, because we're consumers, I have empathy to the buyers and sellers that we're seeking to earn business from, that they're getting inundated too. And the consumer, the buyers and sellers have created their own autoresponders. So they know, in many cases, if I say I have an agent, it will ward off some of the agents, not the pros. The pros will ask, oh, well, which agent in town are you working with? And then the secondary question is, are you satisfied with the representation you're seeking? Now, one scenario that I've encountered hundreds of times, one of the biggest business pillars that the Funk Collection has is our website. We've built a business not from paid ads. It's all organic SEO, and that's from the work that my husband, Jeffrey Funk, did way back in 2006. He built a website, which to this day serves us through organic search engine optimization, has over 1,000 hyper-local communities, the kind of data that doesn't exist on the portals. And I share that with you because a very common thing we hear when buyers are browsing on realtyinorlando.com is, I'm just looking and, I might have an agent, or, yeah, I'm happy with the representation. And again, check with your broker. But there have been times when I say, oh, does your agent Bob have the online resource in Windermere for all things Windermere real estate? Like, I've gotten cheeky on that, and I know it's a little cheeky. It's a tool that I pull out every once in a while. So you can ask those questions of, are you working with an agent? Which agent in town? And are you happy with the representation? What you do from there, I'm going to ask you to speak at the state level, because we just move forward with our discovery call and ask more questions. Now, to get to your other question, Christine, could you share a little more information? You were saying if someone they were looking as a buyer and they put a pause, maybe out of buyer exhaustion, and now they're re-engaging?
Right. So it was how many homes have you toured so far, or have you seen, which gives me an idea of, like, have they actually been out visiting? Oh, we went to some at the open house. Yep. We haven't seen anything yet. They end up answering more than it gives you more of an idea of where they're really at and what they've seen.
They do, and your example is perfect. I have an example that it's similar, a little different, that is a part of an OFQ. So in a part of the training that we do through Exactly What to Say, there is a framework called OFQ, Opening Fact Question. O, F as in Frank, Q. And what an OFQ is a rejection-free opening. It's a way that you can open up any conversation, whether it verbal, email, or written, text message, to have a rejection-free approach. So what is an OFQ? It means polite opening. So, hi, this is Renee Funk from the Funk Collection. We can all do a polite opening really easy. The F stands for fact. That fact must be mutually agreeable fact. So we both have to be able to say, yes, we agree to this fact, because it gets them saying yes. And then the Q stands for question. And the Q is the most difficult thing that agents often get wrong, because they try to ask a big, bold question and they try to ask them to get married, when really, really what they're trying to do is ask a baby question that would find out if there's even potential for a date. So the Q, you need a lot of training. We work a lot on Q. Now, what is an example of an OFQ? Hey, Christine, Renee Funk here with the Funk Collection. You were looking at homes last year, but put a pause on, correct? Share with me, how have the homes you've been looking at the last month online compared to the homes you've been looking at in person? Now, it's just another way to ask that question in a framework of, oh, I haven't been looking at homes online. The answer that they give is not the most important thing. An OFQ is to get any response. So when you use a framework like, oh, you were looking at online and you looked in person, how did those compare? In this scenario, you're often going to get, I haven't seen any in person yet. Since we last connected last year, would you be open to share what some of the things have changed? What's prompting you to reconsider spring being an ideal time? I'm not wanting to do spring. I'm thinking of fall. And you can go super deep with OFQs. There's all different OFQ structures and how you get those rejection-free openings. I'll give you one for an online lead, super simple, is, hey, Jeff, you registered on realtyinorlando.com. It looks like you were viewing a few homes in Windermere. Did the updated listings come through today for you? That's simple. OFQ, polite opening, mutually agreeable fact. Easy to answer question, oftentimes quick yes, no's. You're not looking for, world peace to be solved in this question. You're looking for the response as the win.
That is awesome. I love that one. Really, really quickly, because I saw the one other hand. This will be the last one. Michelle McCormick, if you have a quick question, let's rock and roll. I love it.
I just had a comment of how helpful this is of, it's not scripts, because I don't want to feel like a robot, and I just want to be my authentic self and not come off as a cheesy realtor. So I just really appreciated the injecting our own authenticity into it. And I've told clients, this doesn't make sense for you to sell your house right now. And it just feels good to know that I'm not sinking my ship. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here. And remember, there's two types of agents. There's stereotypical salespeople and there's professional salespeople. And don't worry, you can put that out into the world. We all talk to consumers, sphere of influence, neighbors, prospective buyers, prospective sellers all the time, like probably one of our waking hours. Don't hesitate to put a frame around it. Yeah, there's two types of agents. There's stereotypical agents. You'll see them all over. They're on social media. They're walking their dogs. They're going to tell you, Michelle, you better list your home today. It's the best time to sell. The more that we normalize it, the pros, to say, what it does is it creates more opportunity for conversation. The obstacle is for a different day, is the reason why it's driven, and that is the industry is set up so that everybody thinks it's all rainbows and butterflies and that everything's a transaction on the platter, that we just earn income like this, instead of saying our job should really be to seek and earn more relationships and the income will come. When the relationship is intact, it's earned, it's owned. So you want to earn it and then you want to solidify it and say, like, I own that relationship. Like the seller that we chose to say, it's probably based on what you said, it's probably not the best time to list it. Did we earn that relationship and solidify it? Heck yeah. The other agents, they're nowhere to be found. Thank you so much, Michelle. And Jeff, Richmond, y'all are
all right.
much love.
So good, Michelle. You're awesome. Thanks for being here. And by the way, thank you for all of you for being here, for paying attention. I saw so many people taking notes today, which I love that. The goal obviously is to improve all of our lives and to preserve and improve the consumer experience out there, right? And that's what the income comes from. That's what Renee is telling us here today. And by the way, how many people can tell just from listening to her today why Renee is so damn successful? Holy moly, guys. Like, come on. It's just coming off her like fire. And if you were in an interview, you'd be like, yeah, of course I want to hire you as my agent. That's the reaction that you want people to have with you. And how you do that is a lot of what we learned today. So again, Renee, thank you very, very much. Outstanding. And really, yes, of course, we'd love to have you back.
Yes. Call me back. Call me back. I'll come back. I would love to share time with you. In the meantime, let's make sure we're connected on Instagram. Any questions you have, Instagram DM is usually my best way to get in touch with me.
We will send that out inside of our group as well. We'll syndicate this recording. Thank you, everyone. We love and appreciate you. We'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye, guys.